Hello world, this is Jeffrey, JB146 Blake for Hoopa Hideout, coming to you today with the deck that has done the best for me personally over the last month of testing, and that is Dragapult Lost Box. Interestingly enough, I am running the same 60 that Tord actually put together. So if you've seen Tord's list, then I guess you already have the 60. But it's still worth listening, I think, because there's a whole lot of changes that people have tried. I've tried everything that I've seen out there. I tried to figure out a way. I wanted to see, could I get a Crisis Punch in there? I wanted to see if I could get Lost Vacuum. I wanted to see so many different things that I thought could improve the deck. And every time, whatever I took out just ended up hurting it. So I'm concluding that this 60 needs to be basically just left alone. And that's what I'm going to do going forward for cups I play in and whatnot. And potentially even into the Shrouded Fable format. Anyway, what the list looks like for me right now. Starts off with 4 count of Dreepies, because you need Dreepies to get Dragapults. And then right into the next component, a 4 count of Dracloaks, because you need Dracloaks to get into Dragapults. Not only that, the Dracloaks are a fantastic draw engine. Between them and Comfies, if that's most of your board, you're able to go through your deck and find outs like nobody's business. And in fact, this can play with sort of like a Sablezard that just draws really well. So you can play it that way until the point that you need a Dragapult, and then you just evolve up and you're in business. We do, of course, play Dragapult, but it's only a 2 count. We played Super Rods to get him back, so that's fine. 2 count works. Now there's other Pokemon, of course. It is called a Lost Box deck. So that means 4 Comfey. Usually you just get 2 out, unless something calls for more. Then we play 2 copies of Cramorant. This helps if you need to Lost Zone one, if one is prized. Just making sure you can get him out early to use as your first attacker. And if that one's knocked out, you don't have to immediately use a Super Rod, because you have another one, unless you had to get rid of it. We play 1 copy of Sableye, 1 copy of Radiant Charizard, like I said, Sablezard, 1 copy of Manaphy, and that's the last Pokemon. So it's very important in matchups where it's relevant that you get Manaphy out as fast as possible. Chien-Pao will run over you if they get a chance to attack with Radiant Greninja. Other Lost Box decks will also run over you if they get a chance to attack with Radiant Greninja. But against most Lost Box decks, you actually, as long as you set up okay, you're actually probably favored, because at some point you're going to sneak in Dragapult EX. They're going to have a hard time knocking it out, and you're going to be able to spread damage around. Between the spread you get with Dragapult and then some spread with Sableye, you can set up all sorts of crazy fun combinations there. But let's go into the items as well. And supporters and all that, but items next. So we play 4 count of Buddy Buddy Poffin. I don't want to go lower than that because I want to see this in my starting hand as often as possible. Then we play 2 Nest Balls. I wouldn't mind having more, but again, don't know anything that I could cut. 1, 2, 3, 4 switch card. 2 wouldn't be enough. We play 2 switches. And so in a lot of decks that play both, it kind of doesn't matter, and you almost want to save, like, I guess a lot of Lost Zone decks, right? You might want to save the switch cards to heal your Pokemon, right? So you do the switching first if you have a choice. Here, I would say it's the opposite, right? Because we have stage 1s and stage 2s, we want to play the switch cards on our basics first. Even if it means we aren't going to be able to heal, we want to save those switches for when we have to switch something that isn't a basic, or when that's the only switching card we have. Then we play 1 copy of Rescue Board, usually attached to a Comfey, so that you can go in and out of the active, get that extra little bit of draw. And then we get to the Mirage Gates. We play 3 copies of Mirage Gates. Not 4, but 3. You can usually Lost Zone 1 during a game, and it's not going to impact you too bad. But for prizing purposes, if we want to, we probably want to play 2 during the game, so having 3 is perfect for that. We played 2 copies of Counter Catcher, and this was it was really an interesting part of Tord's presentation about the deck. He kind of made a point that every Charizard or every Dragapult deck he was playing, he wanted to feature Radiant Charizard because of the big attack on a single prizer. He wanted to feature 2 counter catchers because they're that powerful and that important. And he wanted to feature the Ace spec, which we'll get to in just a minute. But first, 2 rare candies. It's only 2. Most of the time we're evolving up through Dracloak. So this is, again, the philosophy where you want to play 2, so you play 3. You want to play 1, really, most games, so you play 2 of them in your deck. We play 2 Super Rods, and we'd like to have more Super Rods. If there's any card we need more of, it's Super Rods. But, again, find a cut, because I am not finding it. And then the unfair stamp is the Ace spec of choice. Like I said, really hyped this up, and I have to agree. I've played a few other Ace specs. In my other Dragapult deck, I recommended the Scoop Up Scoop Up Cyclone, to pick up a full Dragapult with all of his stuff. In this, it's unfair stamp, 100%. Then we get into supporters. Since we are a Lost Zone deck, we are, of course, playing 4 copies of Colress's Experiment, and that sums up most of our supporters. Not all. We have 2 copies of Iono, which can be a big deal late games in like other Lost Zone decks, because you have so much more draw than they do. You can play Iono's late game where you both get down to like a couple cards, right? They're going to struggle to get out of that much more than you will, because Dracloaks. We play 2 copies of Boss's Orders, going along with those 2 counter catchers. This is 4 gusting cards, which is pretty helpful for Dragapult, where you want to be attacking and spreading damage in a certain way, and you want to be able to attack the Pokemon that you want to attack, right? So that's important. And then stadiums. We play 1 copy of Artisan, just to help random points in time. A lot of times late game, getting out Sableye. Sometimes earlier on, getting out a Cramorant, or even for the matches where you need it, can get you the mana fee. Then we play 1 copy of Temple of Sinnoh. Now this will look a little weird given that we are playing some special energies, but it helps against Lugia. That's all it is. Right now, I would say that the Sinnoh is probably the most cuttable card. I think you can do okay into Lugia either way, like without it, basically. So I could see potentially cutting it if you were bound and determined to make a cut. Things I would replace it with, well, we'll talk about that at the end of the video. So then we get to energy. So we play 3 fire energy. We play 3 psychic energy. And we play 2 jet energy. There have been times I tried cutting a jet energy for a Crisis Punch in one case. Doesn't work out. Again, like I would see the Crisis Punch on a turn that I needed jet energy. And Crisis Punch is so, like, you have to have it at the very end of the game. So it's so niche to have it, even though Radiant Zard gives us an extra attacker that can use it above just Cramorant. It wasn't enough for my purposes. But that's one thing I'd like in the deck. Is a Crisis Punch. Another, again, Temple of Sinnoh is probably the most cuttable card in my opinion. Another thing I would like to see would be a Defiance Belt. We talked about wanting a 3rd Super Rod. That's certainly up there as well. I wouldn't mind having more Nest Balls, or even some Ultra Balls, but I don't think we can afford that. Like, even if we were going down our wish list and we got to have 75 cards, I don't know that extra Nest Balls actually make the list, but I wouldn't cut those. Pal Pad is always a card I like to play. You could theoretically cut down a boss to play a Pal Pad, but in practice, that hasn't worked out for me either. I've seen a lot of people cut out a Dracloak and play a 4-3-2 line of Dragapult. Again, I haven't found that to work. It messes with the consistency when you can't frequently draw as well and as easily as you need to. And it messes up your Lost Zone decisions when you have to prioritize Dracloaks higher than you otherwise would. So this 60 is the best 60 for me so far, and I've tested a lot. Hopefully that means that it's the best 60 out there. If you have other experiences, let me know, and I'll certainly entertain the ideas. I love the comments that I get every time I do these deck profiles, because people suggest things, and a lot of times I've already tried what people are suggesting. But even then, it's a helpful discussion to go back and forth. And when I get ideas that I haven't tried, I'll try them out. There was one guy on the Pure Dragapult list that almost got me to switch over to a Neo Upper Energy build, because it was very consistent about setting up, but it just didn't fire off as well later in the game, and we couldn't fix that. But yeah, so excellent. If you have discussions, great. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up with this. I will have a live play video coming out tomorrow. Uses this list. It's against Charizard, so it's a fairly meta-heavy matchup. So look for that too. And without any further ado, I will see you next time.